All right, so chatting about chatbots, subject near and dear to my heart because I like talking and chatting. So what is ChatOps? So ChatOps initially, anytime the airplane will catch up. No.
Do you want me to go over there and just...
No,
press the button?
it moved. It's just the Apple TV is failing.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to work.
It's doing something. It's effort though.
Don't do your thing again. No, seriously, don't do it.
Anyway,
You're being disrupted.
it's all right. So what is ChatOps? ChatOps is an idea around collaboration through shared, persistent, searchable, and accessible communications. Along with that, it's about integrating your tools for development, for business process management, for automation into your stream of discussion, into your conversations in your communication channels. Just a couple quotes. From Marco Briaco. We use chat to improve situational awareness during incidents, to share knowledge, to coordinate activities, and much more. He's from GitHub, where ChatOps sort of was coined. It's all about conversation-driven development. By bringing your tools into your conversations, using a chatbot modified to work with key plugins and scripts, teams can automate tasks and collaborate, working better, cheaper, and faster. Basically, when people are talking about ChatOps, they're talking about chat rooms with bots. Moving along, why are you using ChatOps? What are you doing ChatOps for? It's basically, in my perspective, it's about moving your business conversations into a channel, a communication channel, in order to improve socialization, particularly among distributed teams, improve collaboration, and to, again, take your tools that you use for automation or development or process management and put them into that conversation workflow so that you can operate your business through your conversations. It gives you the opportunity to take email, which currently is a really awful medium for having a conversation. There's a lot of waste, there's a lot of extra effort to go into just adding a one-line reply to any email or adding a person into the conversation. It's a very difficult thing. And basically you move that into a more effective tool. For instance, there's a whole lot of extra stuff that you don't need in email when you're just trying to add an extra person. It also takes all the different sorting and filtering to get the thousands of emails you get every day and move those into channels where you're having a discussion based on a general interest or a shared team or some other common goal, maybe an incident management channel, channels for specific projects, et cetera, et cetera. Your conversations can become a lot quicker. You can bring people into the conversation a lot quicker with things like at mentions and things like that. And it basically removes some of the sluggishness and cumbersomeness of email conversations, which I really appreciate. It also allows you to socialize. There's a lot. You can add plugins to make things a little bit more fun. Looking at some of the bots out there, a lot of them have PugMe plugins to put Pug GIFs into your conversation stream, or you can integrate Twitter or Instagram into your environment. And if you have a geographically dispersed or a temporally dispersed team or distributed team, It's a really nice way to get to know the people that you work with and that you integrate with without having to see them day in and day out in your cubicle farm, or your office farm, or wherever people generally congregate when they work. It also allows you to collaborate over specific tasks, specific events in your work life. For instance, incident management. VictorOps is a tool for dealing with incidents, alerts, things like that in your operations environment. It ties into a lot of monitoring systems to allow you to have a clear timeline of events, of what's happening to your application, to your systems, to your network, and you tie that into the conversation that the team has that's responding to the internet, to the incident. Another example would be Asana's ability to have group conversations around specific projects or specific tasks, where you can bring the team in and discuss goals, or you can have in-task conversations calling in other members of the project. Both of these, of course, integrate into even further into other persistent chat utilities like Slack or HipChat or something like that. Finally, the last step of ChatOps is about integrations. It's about taking the tools, your monitoring tools, your help desk tools, your automated deployment tools, your task management tools, your various programmable robots, and tying them into your chat conversations to allow people to trigger specific actions, whether it's an update to a ticket or an update or a need to find out what EC2 instances are in your AWS environment, or if you want to find out sort of a bandwidth usage graph. You can build tools to automate and integrate all of that into your conversation, so that if you're having a discussion about an issue or a problem or a project, you can just ask the chat room and automated tools will respond to you and give you the information you need, allowing you to continue your conversation. At this point, with HipChat, Slack, and many other tools, there's a ton of possibilities of the things that you can integrate, from MailChimp to Jenkins, continuous integration, GitHub, Asana, Zendesk, Qbot, RSS feeds. There's a whole lot that you can do that with the tools that you may already be using at your office, and you just might be able to expand your capability to interact with those tools in a meaningful way in the conversations that you have with your teammates. In my opinion, one personal case study, I don't know if I'd love it if other people have used any of these tools effectively as well, but I spun up Slack at my previous job to deal with integrating a team of people that was working a 24/7 knock rotation. So people were very temporally distributed, but I needed to disseminate the same amount of information to them as I would for each individual person on that team. They needed to know the same answers to the same questions. And instead of myself staying up 24/7 to work with them continuously, we were able to ask questions. We were in Slack. I could respond there, and people could catch up when their shift came on. And they could search for answers through Slack search tool, and I know HipChat. Link's persistent chat utility also give you search features so that you can search for conversations that people have had, and you can connect to that conversation at a time of your choosing. During the 2 months that we trialed Slack, our ticket closure rate for the operations work that we were doing doubled.
Wow.
And then when my company said that I couldn't use Slack anymore, the ticket closure rates went back down. Um, but we went from about 40 closures a month to nearly 80 for fairly complex operational build-out tickets. That's my example. I don't know if anybody else has effectively used any of these tools, wants to share.
Haven't measured anything, so used it. I have no data to say that it was effective.
All right. So that's just one example, and that's just persistent chat. That's not integrating any specific tools into the mix. That's just allowing people that are not in the office together the ability to talk together in a coherent conversation over a time-distributed platform, a persistent platform. So I think that, you know, even if you don't get to the step of necessarily having the integrations of your monitoring tools, you still can derive some benefit just by starting out with having those coherent conversations in one place that people can utilize. We found it to be really beneficial, and I've been a Slack evangelist ever since. So that's the extent of my basic quick chat about ChatOps. There are some much more in-depth presentations out there that have been done by the folks at GitHub and VictorOps. There's also a very nice slide deck specifically about Slack that I find very good. And I highly recommend, if you have any interest or if you want to encourage people to start using ChatOps utilities or HipChat or Slack or some other tool at your office, to take a look at some of these presentations and see what they can do. And the last person there, Jason Hand, just emailed us in Meetup a little bit ago. He also apparently has a free ebook out about chatting about ChatOps. Any questions? Any thoughts? Any chats?
What about security? Like, for example, if you work for a hospital, like HIPAA stuff, you have to keep some things confidential, I guess. So, which means basically, is the data stored, all the messages and stuff stored in Slack?
So, it depends on the tool that you use. So, for instance, you could use Slack or Microsoft Link. If you use HipChat or Microsoft Link's persistent chat utility, those both give you the option of having servers on premises.
Mm-hmm.
Slack does not have an on-premises model, though there are some clones that you can run on-premise, which are basically, I think there's one interesting clone that's built off of Meteor on Node.js. But Slack is hosted in AWS and actually has some pretty good security policies, which I believe are HIPAA compliant. I'd have to double check that. I know there are government organizations that use Slack effectively, and they also will work with
And the government are releasing information.
Right. Right. So, well, they do have at least policies saying that they won't. So that being said, there are definitely options for a more secure environment. And it all sort of depends on, a lot of that sort of depends on your security team's response. We wanted to use HipChat, the cloud offering, but our security team, we also have HIPAA data, dealing with a lot of insurance vendors and stuff. So we're setting up the HipChat private server, in which case you just have to allow access from your other utilities to access the API of your HipChat server, your Link server, whatever, to be able to get sort of that tools integration if you want. But definitely cuts down on email to have it. Right now, my team uses Link's persistent chat. And although it is my least favorite tool, it does work and it does cut down on communications and it does build team cohesion, as we have a very
So I've watched several presentations and I see there's some benefits, but it's hard to imagine, right, it being that much better than email. I don't want to, like, what's the difference between me writing a bunch of filters to filter email that's specific to me versus somebody else writing all those filters for me, and not, like, I can filter my own stuff better, right?
Can I interject?
Sure.
I think the main thing is you're not writing the filters, nobody else is writing the filters. It's more, you have one channel for general chat.
But then
for
we've
DevOps
just turned it into email exact. That's the problem with email. Right now I've got a mass of information, right? You have it set up so you see every GET commit. You have it set up so all the pull requests come through. And now, like, that's the problem with my email. It's probably the problem with your emails is you have hundreds of emails, and what do you do with them,
I
right?
actually gave up filtering my
Right.
email both at Liquid Web and at Vertiport because I literally could not find the right filters, and testing them was a hassle, especially in Outlook,
But-
because Outlook is confusing.
So why doesn't that happen with chat apps, right? I say this having had this problem with chat apps.
I think it's more self-moderation and community moderation. When you say something off topic, and for example, the security channel, if it's not security related, someone will say, hey, that might be better than channel X. I think it's not so much filtering as it is moderation.
So I'm not worried about the concerns of chatting, right? Like, yes, there's obviously a benefit to having a real-time chat, something available. I don't care if it's Jabber, XMPP, like whatever protocol you choose, that's great.
Yeah.
That it's better than email at that point because you want to do it in real time.
Yeah.
Does
But-
anybody mind
but
if
now-
wait, I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. Does anybody mind if I show their face on video?
I don't really mind.
Everybody's face is looking pretty good.
My face looks horrible, so edit it out.
No, this is really good. Like, your beard is nicely
keep my
trimmed.
sweatpants out.
It's
so.
not
Okay.
trimmed.
No,
This
it's
is-
nicely trimmed. It's nicely trimmed.
It's not trimmed.
Well, it looks
It's
better
better
than
than his.
Yeah.
In the past, he has done worse. I've done much worse.
Yeah.
But so my point is, right? You want to get your ops running out of here is the ideal. So now you're getting all your alerts in here. You're getting all your pull requests are coming through here. You're doing commands through there. What's the difference between that and receiving all that in email? There's literally no difference.
So
And then on top of that though, shit. What was I gonna say?
So what you're saying it's just more the volume of information.
Right, we haven't done anything to alleviate that volume. Now, if you're taking the time to go through and restrict this information, that's an advantage. Except you can do that in email too. Or we have a central dashboard that does all these commands. There's like I think the chat ops thing is blown up, and yeah, you can use it effectively, but you can use email and you can use an internet dashboard just as effectively.
That's my response there is that is one of the reasons that I view the value of simply persistent chat as having immense value in and of itself for eliminating some of the excess emails, the reply alls, the things like that, because you do have to filter some of that stuff out mentally.
Oh yeah. I'll show you.
I think the tooling is a double-edged sword no matter how you implement it, whether it's your alerts are going to your email or your chat room or some dashboard. If you're not working as an organization to constantly improve and monitor and measure the effectiveness of your tooling, I don't think that it's any benefit of you at all.
Right.
But I think something that makes chat ops easier though than email is because, and you touched on this, because it is a community. It's easier to have a conversation when things get too much. Because if like the security channel is blowing up, it's obviously not just too much for you. It's too much for everybody because that's everybody's security filter.
But in the chat, it's no different, right? I come back, and maybe my chat usage is different than other people, but I typically won't visit for 4 hours, right? I'll stop in, I'll view, I'll go respond to everything, and I'll head out, kind of like email, right? But that's how you program. I can't sit there and check the chat every 15 minutes or have an alert pop up, or else I'm not effectively programming. But so at that point, I come back, and I have this, at the top of Slack, it says, you've missed 700 messages. Click, and I click X every time. I don't go read through 700 messages. I'm not insane.
I think community size is a thing too. Like for, I think a lot of people use Slack and other similar services like they use IRC. I guess I'll look at me for a while. Like they use IRC, and here, you point it. And I don't think that's the right way to use it. Like one Slack channel that I belong to is React-to-Flux, where they talk about React and Flux and other tools related to that ecosystem. I really wish it was IRC instead, because that's what I use IRC for like these like big language discussions or big tool discussions that I can just like go into once in a while to ask questions, but there are always like 30 people or maybe just 7 people who are always there who need to talk about other stuff anyway.
I think the main issue I see with, you know, using something like Slack or HipChat or GChat is more, you know, like, and you touched on this, the amount of messages you receive, because the nice thing about IRC is I use IRC a lot, and I have my own IRC bouncer. I self-host ZNC, so, you know, I can configure ZNC to replay messages that I feel are important to me, messages that I'm highlighted in, private messages, so stuff that I would want to read. But when you have something like Slack or HipChat or whatever the cool kids are using nowadays, I think the main issue is, you know, you come back, you know, you leave at 5, you come in at 9, you leave at 5, and you come back in at 9 the next day, and you might have people who are still discussing something that's relevant to you or pertinent to you, and you just go up and you're trying to, you know, find all of this information in just what is essentially a wall of text.
Right. And you can't do the filtering, so now you.
Yeah, so I think the best thing is for the, you know, email obviously has its place. Email's not going anywhere, so I think the main thing is use Slack, like Davin said, for, you know, stuff that like like incident response, you know, things that are, you know, of major importance, or just, you know, general chat. Because, you know, if you want to have a chat with 5 or 6 people, you don't really want to use a link. You know, you don't want to start a group conversation just to, you know, talk to a couple people. But I think for, you know, obviously offline sort of stuff, after hours, or just information that might want to be retained, obviously email is going to be the better solution. So I think integrating the two, you know, and using them both for their own pros and cons is probably the best way you can go. It's like, you know, you can't filter, you can't just get rid of email.
I'd like to.
Don't get me wrong, I don't see any problem with using it. People are just hailing it, like GitHub hails it as their silver bullet to solving all of their
It has
ops
its time
problems.
and place for sure. Yeah.
Well, I actually think that it is more advantageous for larger groups.